Hey guys, and welcome to my latest series on particles, and this will be all done in 426.2. In this series, we're going to start from the beginning with particles, and then we'll look at static meshes, skeletal meshes, programmatically changing and modifying particles, as well as ribbon tracing. To get started here, I'm going to stay organized and make a new folder called FX for all my special effects. And we're going to need two things to get started. The first is an emitter, and I'll just do one from template. I like this fountain. So naming conventions, we want to start emitters with NE for Niagara emitter, and I'm just going to call this fountain. And then we'll also need a system. And for naming conventions here, we're going to start with NS. I'm going to make a new system with my emitter. Add that, and I'll also call this fountain. Now, with emitters and with emitters and systems, a system is a container, and an emitter is actually what creates the particles, what has the properties driving the particles, setting the aesthetics, setting the physics, etc. A system can have more than one emitter, so it has to have one or more emitters, and an emitter cannot stand alone. So an emitter creates the particles, has all those properties, and the system is the container, and they can't function without the other. So let's take a look at this. So the first thing to note, if you are an active Unreal user, the navigation might throw you off because it's in orbit mode. I really don't like this, so I'm going to turn it off. I also find the background pretty distracting. So if we go to Preview Scene Settings, which can also be accessed by Window and Preview Scene Settings, if we go into Environment, we can take out Show Environment, and I actually like doing this with a black background. Cool. Okay, so we have our stack right here. This is a little bit different than some of my earlier tutorial videos, which were from 424 and earlier. So we have a stack right here, it's all listed out. Now, an important thing to note, especially if you come from a creative coding background, processing, P5, Arduino, Open Frameworks, Cinder, all of those, that this is very similar. We have spawn and update. Spawn gets called once at the very beginning of the scene and never again. Update is something that happens every frame afterwards. So something to keep in mind here. And if you're unfamiliar with that, don't worry about it. It will make more sense as we keep going. And so there are a lot of things I can change. If we want, we could change the color. That's kind of fun. Ooh. Maybe some purple. And if you really like the color and you're like, oh, this is a great color, maybe I'll use it later, which I think I'm going to, we can just drag and drop the color right here, and I'll use that later. And there's a whole lot of properties we can change, and we can get into more of this in a bit, but for now, let's just get this into our scene. So I'm going to compile, apply, and save. Now let's go ahead and look at our system. Note the asterisk, it means I haven't saved yet, so I'm going to compile and save. And everything that we do in our emitter is going to show up in our system. So there's our color change right there. Now, in our level, I find working with particles, at least at the beginning, it's a little more fun to start in darkness. And I can just bring in our system, and there we go. I have some particles. Something to note, if your computer is starting to cry a little bit at all of this real-time simulation, while you're just working and you're in the editor, you can always turn off real-time. And so you won't have the simulation going in the editor, and when you hit play, there you go. But my computer is doing okay, so I'm going to keep real-time on. We can also, of course, add this in programmatically. So if I go into my level blueprint, I can go ahead and I can do add Niagara component. And we're going to do our fountain system that we just created. And I'll do this on a key press. So P for particle. And, oh, where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Great. And I'm going to break up this transform right here. And let's just give this a random location. So I'm going to do random float and range, and we'll just put it all over the place. Okay. Cool. And save. And we'll call this particles, maybe particle party. Cool. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And if I hit the P key now, just get a whole bunch of particles. Fun. And clearly they're all over here. That's fine. And now I have a whole bunch of particles in my world, adding them programmatically. And in the next video, we'll look at how to assign these particles to any static mesh. So check it out.